Greetings in the precious name of Jesus. Acknowledge the Lord in all your ways, and He will direct your path. It's a joy greeting and welcoming you into Choices. Our lives today are a testimony of the healing, keeping, saving, and delivering power of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. For it's in Him we live, move, and have our being. We want to encourage you to continue doing what you have started in using what God has blessed you with, and that is using your initiative. We have to start thinking out of the box. It is only once we can live this life. Let us make a success out of it. You're with Choices. Stay with us and enjoy the program. God bless you, and God continue to bless beautiful Guyana. A hearty welcome again. God bless you.
The psalmist wrote in Psalm 92, 12 and 14, he says, "The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon, planted in the house of the Lord. They will flourish in the courts of our God." And it says in verse 14, "They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green." We're discussing the whole issue of leadership today and the growth of leaders stemming from the whole thing about initiative. And so it is the responsibility of every leader to grow, because growth will speak to relevance. If a leader is going to impact change and to be relevant, well, then it is important for the leader to grow. And the psalmist talks about even in your old age. So clearly the psalmist speaks about the leader on a developmental trajectory, talking about the leader flourishing and growing even into old age. And Stephen Covey nicely puts it: if we're going to be relevant as leaders, and we're going to remain if we're going to be of any significance to God's program, he talks about the dimensions of growth that we should exhibit. And he talks about growth should take place in 3 dimensions. He talks about the spiritual dimension. And the psalmist was very keen on this part here, because you can't grow unless you are spiritually sound, spiritually solid. So he said the righteous will flourish in the courts of the yard. So you have to be spiritually sound. You have to be connected to God, who is able to bring that kind of wisdom and guidance to you. So he talks about the spiritual dimension, and then he talks about the physical dimension. So if you are sickly, and this is how COVID side, right? If you're sickly and you can't move around, you can't do the things that God would want you to do in a certain way. So he talks about taking concern over your health, your physical well-being. So it is important for us to live healthy lives. So if we're going to grow, and this is not knocking anybody, you can't spend your time, Reverend Sanders, smoking marijuana and cocaine and think you're going to grow, because your physical well-being must be intact for you to really grow and develop. As a matter of fact, people tell you certain drugs and use of certain drugs or certain whatever behavior patterns stunts growth. So the physical dimension, and then he talks about the mental dimension, which is very important, the mental dimension or the cognitive dimension. So you have to spend time studying, you have to spend time reading, spend time building up yourselves, being au fait with what is out there, understanding issues related to the sacred as well as the secular, because you can't be heavily minded and earthly no good. So Covey really put these dimensions into perspective that will really cause a leader to remain relevant. So the spiritual dimension the physical dimension and the mental dimension. These dimensions, if they are cultivated and developed, well, then the leader has a holistic approach to his or her development. Gentlemen.
Growth is quite an interesting leadership and growth is quite an interesting concept. And when Dr. Hudson spoke about the 3 dimension, instantly the issue of environment came to mind, because in order for one to grow, the environment needs to be conducive. And I was looking at a book the other day, and I realized that dirt, we need soil or the right environment for a plant to grow. And there's a difference between dirt and soil. So somebody might see you in an environment and they might look at you and they might say, oh, this person is looking horrible or what's not. But a plant needs a certain environment to grow. The point I'm trying to get to is when you want to grow, you need to make a deliberate and a conscious effort. And I always mention my favorite scripture, Proverbs 15:22, which speaks to purposes are established in a multitude of counselors. So I'm speaking from a young person's perspective. When you want to grow, it is always important for you to align yourself with people in the right environment that will facilitate your growth. For me, I've always looked at my leaders right on this panel and my bishop, for example. I've always noticed that this is a man that he never wants us to simply point out problems. He always wants us to look for solutions. And I was like, yeah, the people that I've been around before, prior to encountering Bishop Messiah, they have like a heavily emphasis on problems. And I noticed I was becoming problems, just pointing out problems. But I realized that environment on the Bishop Messiah was the right one, was the conducive one for growth. And this man was a man of solution. So I instantly gravitated to him. And I noticed that, as opposed to just pointing out problems, I started to be solution oriented. Because why? I was in a previous environment where I was only focusing on dirt, as opposed to looking at it from a soil perspective. Like I could grow, I could mature, I could become more than just the stereotypical problem finder, but I became solution oriented. So I'm encouraging you as a young person, your environment is extremely important. As Dr. Hudson said, you can't be looking at people or smoking weed or everybody in your environment is fixated on one set of things. And it's always good to outgrow your environment, also mature. If you're the smartest person in your friends group, I think was Dr. Miles Monroe pointed it out, then it may be time for you to change that group and change your environment. So my encouragement is to be cognizant, discern your environment, and know when there's dirt and know when there's soil for growth.
I was a military personnel, and leadership is one of the main objectives in the military. From the time you finish recruit training and you move on, you would like to be a lance corporal, you go on a course. And from there on, they teach you about leadership. They watch you, they assess you, they listen how you speak to persons, how you carry out your tasks and everything. When I joined the military, I saw friends with ranks and I said, look, Millie, you gotta study these people because you want to reach up just like how they reach to be a W ever. You must try and reach to the level. And I went on every course and was successful in doing these courses. But it made me a leader that persons would love to go anywhere I'm going to do an operation, persons would like to come with me because of my leadership skill. But, you know, sometimes you just stay just like this. All right, now I'm a big person. I just relaxing and, you know, watching the young people. I could advise them, but you know how it is go. Bless God.
Oh, Brother Millie,
Leadership.
I love the point that you highlighted. Brother Millie. When you're approaching the process of becoming a leader, growing, you have to understand that your objectives change. You know, it's no longer about you being the best or you being the fastest or you being the smartest. It's about how are you going to change yourself so that you enhance the capabilities of the people around you. I watched a video on social media the other day, and they were saying that you don't just call somebody a chef. You know, somebody could be a good cook, but the difference between a good cook and a chef is that a good cook could go in the kitchen and make something special, something that tastes real nice. But a chef could go in a room with a set of different people and make them produce better, you know? And that is the difference between just being a great person and being a leader. So as we think about the idea of becoming leaders and becoming better leaders, we have to understand that it no longer is focused on you just being the best version of you, but it's about you helping other persons to tap into their skills, tap into their abilities, and helping them to understand their purpose so that the productivity of the society or the community is enhanced.
I wanted to come off of the heels of what Martin said. You know, a great leader is able to foster the growth of other leaders. And I think that is equally important because even as we think about the growth process, something that is critical to that process that is many times undermined by our leaders of today is an element called rest. It is necessary. Many a times we get caught up doing what needs to be done true to the point where we neglect our own bodies mentally and physically. But if as we go along life's journey, we build other leaders, we do two things. We allow ourselves to get rest when that time is necessary because we've already brought somebody up to standard so that they can perform that task in our absence. And two, we pass knowledge on to our future leaders. So while it's good to build them, it's not just to build them so we pass on knowledge, but so that we allow ourselves to rejuvenate and to be able to recoup so that we can climb even to a higher level in our process of leadership. And I finally wanted to speak on what I believe it was Reverend Hudson said. The human body is very complex. It is impossible to supply one part and neglect the other part. What am I saying? What am I saying by that? You have to address each and every aspect. The human is spiritual, he's physical, and he has a soul, a mind, a will. So if you address only one thing and leave the other, then you become unbalanced. And so it's important as a leader to address all of these things. How do I address them? We're not alone. Leaders, let's understand something. Yes, we are leaders, but God has given us the ability to have at least one person, maybe two persons besides us who can help us to say, hey, you're doing a good job, but I think if you focus a little more on this aspect of your life, you would do even better. So that way it's like a domino effect. You have persons around you who can help you so that you can in turn help the other person. And if we continue like that, you would see the society growing constantly. There wouldn't be gaps because it's like each generation helping the other generation to become stronger, to become better, and they can also become more productive so that our society becomes a place that we'd all want to be a part of and live and enjoy.
By now, we recognize that we are conducting a discussion how to stir up the gift of God that is inside of us, and that there is the ability within us to grow from just being a good person to becoming one who positively influences the life of others. By now, you're recognizing that we have We are in this great incubator where great change is taking place on the inside of each one of us on this program, to each listener, to the place where God is lifting us up to be an agent of change in the life of others. We want to encourage us as we encourage you, as we encourage ourselves to grow, to grow, to grow. By now you recognize it's hard work, and some feel it is better to remain static. I want to reference John Maxwell. John Maxwell, from his The Law of Progress, he makes the observation: leadership develops daily, not in a day, which means it takes time to grow. It doesn't happen overnight. It means that it is deliberate. And I believe that there is tremendous leadership ability in young people. And an incubator like this is going to not only bring the awareness, but also bring the passion to sharpen the skill. I look forward to people like Martin and Dr. Kezia and Limar and Joshua as they speak. At the same time, you can see a passion in them to do things better. And to all of us, we are challenged to grow. And I say to Paul, say to you like Paul told Timothy, store up the gift. Yes, but it must not go dormant. It must be stirred up, and it must be cleaned up, and fashioned and polished, and developed. So when it comes on the stage, it must look glowing. That's the intent of God, that each one of us impact each other in such a positive way.
One of the things, rather, that we need to address, as Dr. Keisha was making a point, if we are to grow as a leader, we must acknowledge that we have strengths and we have weaknesses. It's easy for us to operate from a position of strength because we are acquainted with our strengths. But sometimes if we neglect our weaknesses, we can become blindsided. And so as a leader, for us to grow, we must be able to unmask our flaws, conquer. And in order to conquer those flaws, we must first accept them. And once you know your weaknesses, the fact is that no one else can use them against you, because you're better prepared to grow as a leader. And, everyone has flaws. No one is perfect. But when you understand your own, you can embrace all who you are. And then you learn as a leader, as you continue to grow, you learn from your failures. Growing as a leader means developing the ability and the willingness to have your failures shape you. It's all part of our shaping. It's all part of that incubator that Reverend Sanders spoke about. And, failure can become instructive, if we want them to. It allows us to learn as a leader. And we all fall down. But failure means we refuse to get back up and deal with our issues. So if we're going to grow, we will get back up, we will unmask our flaws, we will learn from our mistakes, and we will add to our strengths.
Leadership is important. Leadership is influence. But growth in leadership is not always comfortable. And yes, it does include learning and a holistic approach, as we've discussed. And I think of the environment, I think of a plant, as Minister Limar mentioned. We see one aspect of the plant. We see that which is above the ground. But then there's also the roots, that which is not seen, that which is below the surface. And both aspects are important for growth. In leadership, there is the visible aspect, that which is seen, your character, your work, your output. But really and truly, the nourishment of the plant draws a lot from what is unseen in the roots, in the soil. That is your studies, your learning, your seeking of knowledge and understanding. The roots also help to set that foundation when a strong breeze may blow or things get rough. In that, as we grow in leadership, we need to, while we consider the three dimensions, also appreciate what is seen, what is presented publicly, and also what is unseen, what we do in private. Both are pivotal for us to become great, rounded, balanced leaders that produce fruit, good fruit.
As we talk about leadership and as we talk about initiative and as we talk about growth, I would like to leave 2 quotes with us. The first is, you cannot become what you need to be by remaining what you are. Zig Ziglar, motivational speaker, businessman. You cannot become what you need to be by remaining what you are. We're talking about leadership. We spoke the last 2 weeks about becoming a leader and about seeking and taking initiative. So you would like to become a leader beginning from the familiar level. You cannot get to where you need to be by remaining where you are. So you have to invest in yourself. All the speakers before said that. Dr. Hudson spoke about investing in the total person, spiritual, physical, mind. Dr. Keisha spoke about getting rest, every single thing. So you are a workaholic and you're not resting, you're not the best leader. Yes, of course you want to achieve, but you have to, it's a holistic package. So the first one we need to do is to do things differently, not just differently, but in a better manner as we grow. That's one of the ways that we can grow. We need to do things that are better. Here this example. Jesus came into the temple, the best teacher, the best leader that ever walked this earth. When he was on this earth, he came to the temple and he saw money changers and he saw businessmen hustling, selling doves, selling birds, and everybody was having a grand time in the temple. What did Jesus do? The best leader, the best example we ever had. He upturned everything, broke up everything. Guess what? There were other leaders in that temple. Other leaders saw what was going on. Jesus was away and he came back. Other leaders were there, but for whatever reason, they chose not to act. And the leader, the example that was left for us is that initiative was seized. This is wrong and we will do something about it. Broke up everything. We're talking about initiative. We're talking about growing. This is an example that we have. You see something wrong, you know what to do. It's not you are a leader, act on it. Why the others didn't, we can't see. When we do this, Barack Obama says, when we succeed because of our individual initiative, but also because we do things together. So as you determine to grow, as you determine to get better, it's not only about you, you have to involve others, as was said earlier.
I like that, Pastor Kurt. I think growth is also related, or there's a correlation between growth and service. What you do, how you help people. The worst thing that could destroy a leader is inactivity. And so Jesus himself made mention that if any of you desire to be great, you must serve. Because service is action oriented, and the word in itself speaks about people doing things from the heart and not necessarily prompted or pushed into, but you're doing things from the heart to build up, to empower other persons. And even as Jesus served, and I think we had this discussion in our preliminary or pre-conversation, that he was given a name above every other name. So service is bound to your growth and development, because if you keep your hands closed like this all the time and you do nothing, or you wait to be told what to do, sometimes you're never told what to do. So there's no growth, there's no development for you as an individual. So it is important that we seek to serve by empowering and touching the lives of other people. And that in itself gives us a platform to take off. So service is related to our growth.
Grow in grace and in the knowledge of God. 2 Peter, I think it's chapter 3. Yes, 3. Grow in grace. But the verse before that is interesting. Why should we grow in grace? The verse before that says, we are not given the option either to grow or stay the same. Or not that. Grow. We are not to be carried away with the error of lawless people. So if we do not grow, we can be easily carried away with the errors of lawless people. This is why we're talking about growth among ourselves, to the nation, to families, to the world. There's a desire, there's a need for growth. Grow in grace, as Reverend Dr. Hudson said. That's the humility part, the service part. You grow in grace and in knowledge. Because if we don't do that, the part before comes, we'll be easily carried away by lawless people. There's a desire for growth, Reverend Asano, a desire for growth.
Well, growth suggests endless possibilities. It also shows the great need for success, for the fulfillment of great demands that are in our community, and the possibility of demonstrating how great God is. Yes, I must acknowledge, for us to remain effective, we must grow. But I like, as we wrap up, I like the old notion, as somebody described it, the old notion of discipline, the old notion of commanding ourselves to grow. And as we allow ourselves to fit into a mode that I need to develop, not only we develop, but even those around us develop also. So if you're fallen down, God will say to you, get up, let's go again. If you made a mistake, God will say to you, it's not the end of the road. Come on, let's get up and do it better the next time. I think just knowing God requires us to improve our lives and to improve the lives of those around us. So every effective leader, let's get on the train. You want to call it the bus, and let us grow, because it's God's desire for us to just grow. God bless you. This is Choices. Continue the discussion. Growing as a leader. Blessings. Shalom.
We thank you for joining us on Choices today. Remember, you can join us at First Assembly, LNP Durban Street, Workmanville, Georgetown, Guyana, for any of our special services. I'm Celacia on behalf of the set, reminding you that your whole life is the sum of your choices. God bless you.